David looked surprised. What do you mean? Your reason for teaming up with me is that you think I'm weak and will be disliked by other players. But in the first round of the game just now, whether it was fighting against the snowman or escaping from the pursuit of the Snow Queen, you hardly ever doubted me. You seemed to trust my ability. Why? The game is that all members of the small team survive until the end. If something happens to me, you will also die. But you are not worried at all. The only reason is that you are very clear about my strength. The dinner knife is actually not sharp, but I have no mercy under my hand. David's neck has been pressed out a fine, long line of red liquid. David was silent for a while. His gaze moved away from my face and looked into the distance. His voice was light and said, "Let me tell you my story. The first escape game I experienced was in my residential building. More than 100 households. In the end, only I survived. But in reality, there was a big fire in the residential building. All the players who died in the game also died in the fire in reality. I tried to call the police and tell them about the game, but I found that I couldn't speak. As long as I wanted to talk about the game, I couldn't make a sound from my throat. The handwritten pen could not leave a trace on the paper. Even the posts I posted on the forum were always 404. I couldn't tell anyone about this, which made me fall into a huge panic. Until one day not long after, I saw from the news that a large-scale accident occurred in a high road. More than 100 people died, and only one person was rescued. From then on, I started to pay attention to you. I'm a hacker by profession. I wanted to track your news regularly. It's easy. Don't worry, I won't pry into your privacy. I found that after the highway incident, you've always been extremely calm. You didn't go to see a psychologist, and you've never collapsed in public. Even 2 months ago, you started going to the gym every day to enhance your physical fitness. At that time, I was thinking, you're a very smart, very calm person with a clear goal in the game, which is to survive. If you can team up with me in the game, our hope of winning will be greater. So the first time I saw you here, I knew I had to team up with you to escape from this game. While David spoke, I stared at his eyes the whole time to make sure he wasn't lying. I pulled the dinner knife away from his neck and said casually, "Have you ever thought that there may only be one winner in this game? By then, no matter who the opponent is, I won't be merciful." David gave a bitter smile and sighed. "If in the end only one person can escape from here, then I hope it's you and me in the final showdown." After a brief pause, he said, "Alice, I've answered your question, and I have one too. I hope you can answer it. I feel that your performance is very contradictory. All your actions are showing that you want to survive. But from your eyes and attitude, I didn't see any desire to survive. This is why I don't like teaming up. The feeling of being seen through by others is really annoying. I do feel that there is no point in living, that there is nothing in this world worth reminiscing about. But when I tried to hang myself in the room, the rope inexplicably broke. When I took a lot of sleeping pills, all of them expired. When I cut my wrist with a knife, the next second a neighbor from downstairs came knocking on the door, saying that their house was leaking and asking me what was going on. I could only bandage the wound and deal with the neighborhood disputes. It seems like fate is preventing me from giving up and starting over. Withdrawing from my memories, I unconsciously held the flour knife in my hand. However, my voice was undeniably determined. Just because I think life is boring doesn't mean others can easily take my life. If one day I die, it will only be by my own hand, not this perverted game. While I was talking with David, 3 teams had already successfully escaped from the ice and snow amusement park and returned to the hall. The last team was very conspicuous. It was also a combination of a man and a woman. After the 2 narrowly escaped, the girl kept sobbing softly, covering her chest, saying that she thought she was going to die in the first level. Her teary eyes were like a frightened deer. However, the reason why they were conspicuous was that I recognized the girl. She is the popular singer, Emma. She debuted as a singer and then ventured into the field of film and television. She was delicate, friendly, and also very intelligent. A smart and beautiful woman, she quickly became a top streamer in the entertainment industry. I didn't expect such a person with so many auras to be pulled into this horror game. I watched her crying with boredom. Suddenly, the doll appeared in the hall, happily raising a snowflake, laughing loudly. Congratulations to the 5 pairs of players who have successfully passed the first level of the game. Did you all have fun in the ice and snow amusement park? There are more surprises waiting for you in our sightseeing trip, so. He drew out his voice, exaggeratedly licked his lips, his scarlet eyes full of anticipation. Let's start the second level of the game quickly. Candy House Shopping Center is the largest mall in the fairy tale town. It collects all the peripherals in fairy tales and is the best choice for preparing gifts for relatives and friends when traveling. This is the territory managed by Snow White. As long as you pay enough gold coins, you can exchange the gifts you want from Snow White. Game rules. The shopping center implements a mandatory purchase system. Once tourists enter, they must spend 100 gold coins to buy an apple from Snow White in order to leave. Note, you can find the dwarves in the open-air square to obtain gold coins by completing tasks. Each task can earn 50 gold coins. The task of buying apples is based on teams, meaning each team only needs to exchange for 1 apple to successfully clear the level. The shopping center's business hours are limited to 2 hours. If you fail to leave within 2 hours, you will have to stay here permanently and become an employee of Snow White. The game does not restrict the actions of the players and does not prohibit violence between players. This game does not limit the number of clearances, but both members of the team must survive to be considered a successful clearance. Players, start your happy shopping journey. The scene in front of me changed rapidly again. In the bright and spacious mall, the floor was made of chocolate, the walls and stairs were built with cookies, the seats were fluffy soft bread, and layers upon layers of potato chips formed countless shelves. It seems that this shopping center is based on the gingerbread house in Grimm's fairy tales. After crossing the atrium and walking 200 meters to the left, you will find a small door leading to the completely enclosed outdoor square. 7 dwarves were singing hand in hand with their backs to us. The ups and downs of the singing quickly reached my ears. The first one choked on food and couldn't be saved. The second one fell into a coma and never woke up. The third one went to the city to deliver goods and died. The fourth one was chopped in half while chopping wood. The fifth one fell into a well and couldn't be rescued. The sixth one fell down while climbing a tree to pick fruit. The seventh one was half in the water, fishing in the west. The eighth one was buried weakly. The ninth one fell down while mopping the floor. The 10th one lost his head when a fan fell down. By the end of the song, the 7 dwarves turned around in unison, and their heads fell off their necks and bounced onto the person next to them. Red liquid splattered everywhere, and the 7 skulls jumped around in midair, their pitch-black pupils staring at me. They asked in unison, "Which one are you? Which one are you?" Their voices were chilling. The chilling chorus drilled forcibly into my ears, and I felt dizzy. After the singing stopped, the 7 dwarves' heads returned to their bodies, and they walked up to the players, saying in unison, "If you want gold coins, do some work." Which one to do? Draw lots. A black bamboo basket appeared in front of us, containing 10 crumpled balls of paper. The players each randomly picked a ball of paper. I unfolded the one in my hand, and it read, "There is a batch of Cinderella's same model crystal shoes, custom made by Snow White in the warehouse, but Cinderella's real shoes were also accidentally mixed in. You need to find the real crystal shoes and give them to the dwarves. Otherwise, if Cinderella misses the ball, there will be serious consequences." Suddenly, I remembered the song the dwarves sang earlier. The 8th one, "Weak and Buried." So the 10 in the lyrics corresponded to the 10 players on the scene. Each player's task had hidden dangers and was likely to die according to the content of the song. David came over with his ball of paper and asked me, "What did you draw?" I showed him my paper, and he frowned. "You might encounter some dangers in the mall with this task. Be careful." "Don't worry, I'll be fine." Without even blinking an eyelid, my voice was calm and unflustered. "You also be careful. Don't hold me back." The mall's warehouse is on the basement level and is quite large. The floor is still made of chocolate. In the corner, there are 2 baguettes made into long sofas, and countless shelves built with potato chips, stretching as far as the eye can see. The shelves are filled with transparent boxes, and each box contains a pair of crystal shoes shining with tiny lights under the illumination, almost indistinguishable from each other. And when I looked back, the door behind me was locked at some point. I had a bad feeling. It's impossible to find the real pair among thousands of crystal shoes by looking at them one by one. The game's rule of a 2-hour time limit also makes this task impossible to complete. Plus, there's a jail guard who's too weak to move and is buried in the falling building accident. I didn't touch any of the boxes, just walked around the shelves twice. After careful observation, I concluded that these crystal shoes are all exactly the same. It's absolutely impossible to find the real thing based on their appearance. Compared to the ice and snow amusement park, this game seems to be less dangerous on the surface. At least, there's no constant threat of death. But just like the predicament I'm facing now, this kind of seemingly dead end is even more likely to cause a breakdown. The 2-hour game has completely turned into a countdown of life. But as long as it's a game, there must be a solution. The doll wouldn't really set up a dead game for players to get stuck in. My brain was spinning rapidly, trying to find the breaking point of this game. Suddenly, I felt the chocolate floor under my feet seem to soften a bit. It's not just a feeling. The floor was really changing. The originally hard ground started to collapse rapidly. The shelves lost support and fell down one after another. The boxes containing crystal shoes fell with a crash. I looked back and saw a 5-story large shelf swaying as if it was about to fall on me. It's the jail guard from the song. I turned around to run, but found my feet had completely sunk into the chocolate lava, and I couldn't run at all. Seeing the shelf about to collapse, I gritted my teeth, pulled my legs out, and quickly climbed onto a fallen shelf in front of me. I used it as a stepping stone and climbed out of the danger zone with both my hands and feet. I had just climbed a few steps when a loud bang came from behind me. The 5-story large shelf had completely collapsed. The melted chocolate liquid splashed around due to the impact, and a few drops even splashed onto my face. I looked coldly at that shelf. If I hadn't run out just now, what would be flying around now wouldn't be chocolate, but my body. Before I had time to feel relieved from the narrow escape, at the forefront of my field of vision, the 2 long sofas placed in the corner of the warehouse also began to change. The sofas started to collapse gradually, and a reddish-brown liquid started flowing out, accompanied by a stench. In just a moment, the sofas had completely retracted into the liquid, leaving no trace of existence. But this was not the end. Without blinking, I stared, and soon a large, brown giant bug crawled out from the liquid. Standing upright, it was more than 2 meters tall. The giant bug's body was covered in segments. Its bulging eyes were round, and its wide-open mouth was filled with 2 rows of sharp, dense teeth. The chocolate floor melted due to heat, and it seems that the transformation of the bread sofas was due to rot and decay. The brown giant bug twisted its body, rushed to a shelf, and bit the shelf in half, swallowing both the shelf and the boxes of crystal shoes on it. Before I could be astonished, the giant bug had noticed me. It opened its mouth widely, crawled forward like a snake, swallowing shelves and shoeboxes while charging at me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a table knife. This was the practical table knife I had during the standoff with David in the clubhouse. At this moment, it was the only weapon in my hand. The giant bug's speed of swallowing objects was very fast, and in just a moment it had charged to my front. I held the table knife tightly in one hand, while continuously picking up the boxes of crystal shoes around me with the other hand and throwing them at it to slow down its speed. The boxes flew around in a mess, and while it was busy eating, I quickly got up, crawled to its back, held the table knife in my mouth, and tightly grasped the segment of its tail. Using my hands and feet together, I climbed up. This was the strategy that David and I came up with. In the ice and snow amusement park, he attacked the snowman by climbing onto its body and attacking from above. This is the safest and most powerful way to attack. When I climbed to its neck, the giant bug felt my presence and shook its head frantically, trying to throw me off. I lay flat on its back, my limbs tightly holding it, ensuring that I wouldn't be thrown off. After freeing my right hand, I pulled out the table knife in my mouth, raised it high against the back of the bug's head, and was about to stab it. Wait, something's wrong. Just as the table knife was about to pierce its cerebellum, I suddenly stopped. There's something I've overlooked. I narrowed my eyes and carefully recalled what had just happened. Each of the bug's movements played back in my mind like a movie. I widened my eyes and found that when it was about to attack me, I casually picked up several crystal shoe boxes and threw them at it. It swallowed almost all of them, with only one exception. It spit out a box it had taken into its mouth. That must be the real crystal shoes. I turned to look at the chaotic chocolate lava floor that it had swept over. The box had mixed in there and had long since disappeared. So, to find the real crystal shoes again, I had to rely on the bug's swallowing. If I killed it for survival, the game would truly become a dead end. I couldn't help but curse in my heart again, what a pervert this doll is. What I needed to do now was to make the bug obediently continue to swallow the remaining boxes. I took off my coat, cut it into strips with the table knife, and twisted it into a rope. I held one end of the rope and swung the other end several times, successfully passing it under the bug's neck and tying the two ends of the rope together, essentially putting a collar on it. After tying a tight knot, I pulled the rope back hard, leaving a deep indentation on the bug's neck. The feeling of suffocation made the bug extremely uncomfortable. It kept twisting its body, trying to escape the restraint of the rope. I directly punched its head and roared, "If you don't want to die, behave." I used all my strength, and my fists rained down like hailstones. The 2 months I spent in the gym finally paid off at this moment. In just a moment, the giant bug was stunned by the punches on its head. It lost the ability to resist. Teetering on the ground, a few drops of liquid flowed out of its round eyes. I tightened the rope again and commanded, "Get up and keep eating the boxes." The giant bug couldn't understand my words, but it could feel that I was using the rope to control its direction. Seeing me leading it to a pile of boxes, it quickly understood and started to eat voraciously. I controlled it like this, making it eat one pile of boxes after another. Finally, in front of a box smeared with chocolate liquid, the giant bug stopped. It lowered its head to sniff the box, hesitated for a moment, then turned its body to the other side and started to eat other boxes. I found it. I cheered up, jumped off the bug while holding the rope, and held the box in my arms. The bug's neck was still tightly choked by the rope, so it dared not attack me. I quickly opened the box and took out the crystal shoes inside. The moment I held the crystal shoes in my hand, the scene in front of my eyes quickly switched. In a blink of an eye, I had left the warehouse and returned to the open square. In the center of the square, a large pot was set up. 7 dwarves were standing in a circle. Some were adding water to the pot, some were adding firewood to the bottom of the pot, and one dwarf was holding a long spoon, constantly stirring the water in the pot. As I walked closer for a closer look, I realized that there was not only water in the pot, but also a corpse. The corpse was dressed in a decent suit, and a silver fish was on its right hand. However, it was not the hand that was holding the fish, but the fish had grown exaggerated teeth and was biting his hand tightly. Fishing by the stream, half in the water, it turns out that he died in the stream. This person, I remember him as 15, a teammate of the popular starlet Emma. The reason these two teamed up is quite peculiar. Emma is a top celebrity in the entertainment industry, while 15 is a young talent of his city, an entrepreneur with a family fortune of several billions. They are both very famous. In the club hall, the two recognized each other at a glance and quickly formed a team. I glanced at his face, which was scalded by boiling water, revealing the flesh beneath. Despite his enormous wealth, he was dragged into this survival game, risking his life for a few gold coins. I handed the crystal shoe to the dwarf in exchange for 50 gold coins. As soon as I turned around, David just happened to come over. His clothes were ragged and torn in several places, but he seemed unscathed. I raised an eyebrow at him, and he gave a tired smile in understanding. It was a close call, but we escaped death and successfully completed the task. The task we drew was to deliver goods to the residents of Fairytale Town. Facing several NPCs, the difficulty was no less than mine. He delivered the goods to the city and was on the verge of death, but luckily he survived. With the completion of the task, we received 100 gold coins. We didn't hesitate for a moment and immediately headed to the shopping center on the 4th floor. There, Snow White runs the only Apple store in Fairy Tale Town. We were going to exchange our gold for her apples. In the largest shop on the 4th floor, Snow White was lazily lying in an apple rocking chair. When she saw us come in, her beautiful light brown eyes lifted slightly, twinkling with fascinating light like stars. I pushed 100 gold coins in front of her. She nodded, turned around, and took 2 apples from the basket behind her and put them in front of me. 2 apples, one is poisonous and one is not. You choose. If you choose the non-poisonous apple, you can leave here safely. If you choose the poisonous one, the moment you walk out the door, you will suffocate from the poison. She blinked, her voice sweet, like it had been soaked in freshly fried apple juice. It seemed as if she was saying what a lovely day it was, not offering a choice of life or death. Both apples were the same, rosy and bright, exuding an enticing sweetness. They marked the final step of this game, with a 50% chance of survival in my own hands. I looked around the apple shop. It was full of all kinds of apple-related foods: apple juice, apple pie, apple candy, apple cake, and fresh apples. Each type of food was packed in a very beautiful bag, and the red ribbon knots added a lot of value to these goods. My gaze settled on the ribbon knots, and I asked Snow White, "Will my apple be packed like this after I choose it?" "Of course," Snow White answered with a sweet, proud smile. "Every item that leaves the Apple Store is carefully wrapped by me. This is the signature of the Apple Store, and everyone in the town knows it." I nodded, casually picked up the apple on the right, and said, "I choose this one." That's the second part of the story. Stay tuned for the final part, which will be released tomorrow.